BMW Motorcycle Owners of America present the Short Wheelbase Podcast. With members in all 50 states, Canada, and across the globe, the BMW MOA invites you to ride inspired. Learn more about membership benefits, including roadside assistance, tire hazard protection, and more at bmwmoa.org. The Short Wheelbase Podcast is also brought to you by Boxer 2 Valve, supplier of quality OEM and aftermarket parts and specialty tools, and by Air Support BMW, offering premium driveline rebuilding and performance enhancements for your air-cooled BMW.
Welcome, everybody. It is episode 30 of the Short Wheelbase Podcast, and we have a special guest today. William Plam from Boxer 2 Valve is joining us. Thanks for being on the show, William. Welcome. I know you've been on Darren's audio podcast before, and your face is all over YouTube with all of your amazing Boxer 2 Valve how-to videos and all of the other content that you've produced. So I think folks know who you are, but for those who don't know who you are, I'd love to give you a chance to just kind of introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, and take it away.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here on your episode 30 of all things. That's very cool. And so, yeah, my name is William. I currently live in North Carolina. That's where we are. It's Hendersonville, the mountains. And I've been affiliated with BMW in one way or another for, more than 40 years now, and importer for the company called Wunderlich, which makes parts for the newer BMWs. And we just we're celebrating this year 25 years of doing that. And then we've been thanks. And now we also do Boxer 2 Valve, which kind of came as a little side thing out of my passion for the older bikes I kind of grew up with. And so we just got two websites, two sort of companies, and we love motorcycles, and we love providing you with perfect, excellent parts.
Awesome. Well, and thank you for that. I've purchased quite a few, and like I mentioned, you've got the YouTube how-to videos. I've watched a ton of them. I don't think I start a project without at least referencing your videos just to make sure make sure I'm not goofing anything up. Darren interviewed William. I don't remember which episode it was now. I think it was fairly early on in Darren's run of episodes, and dives into William's full backstory. So if you really want to get the full story, please tune into that. William also appears pretty regularly on Darren's show with little tech tips and things along the way. So lots more to hear from William on that, on all of Darren's audio episodes. So please, feel free to check those out as well. But specifically today, we have William to talk about a specific topic. Darren's covering this as well with some other folks on the audio podcast. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the current tariff situation and the de minimis rule or clause. If you're not familiar with what that clause is, just a little brief explanation. It's basically, at one point, it was only a $200 limit on packages coming into the U.S. Anything under $200 were not subject to taxes or tariffs. In 2016, that got bumped up to $800, and that was something that President Obama enacted. But most recently, I think this was back in August, the current administration has removed that completely. So now any packages coming in are subject to taxes and tariffs. As William just mentioned, he's providing parts and supplies for all of our classic Airheads. And I have to imagine, right, like you're importing at least some of these parts in from outside of the US. That's a correct assumption, right? Yeah. So I would love to just hear a little bit about what these changes in the rules and the tariffs and how that's kind of impacting your business and ability to get parts.
Sure. Yeah. It's had a huge impact on us, and it continues to, with probably no near-term end in sight. But basically what happened was more or less overnight, they changed the rules, and the rules used to be, there's a certain tariff code that covers motorcycle parts, and also underneath that basic tariff code heading, I should just back up a little bit. Basically, there is a tariff code for everything you can imagine, any object, anything that is conceivable. You can link it to some kind of tariff code. There, you figure out a way, there is something that describes it. And every different object and everything like that is subject to different tariffs, if any. And then it depends on what country it comes from. And it's a very, very complicated thing. There's a website the government has that you can look up these codes, and you have to kind of figure it out what the tariff codes are. But the tariff code for motorcycle parts and bicycle parts too, for that matter, and things like that, were for the longest time so-called free. They didn't have any additional tariffs on them. And so that is still sort of the case in a way, but what's changed is that there's most all of our stuff comes from the European Union.
Okay.
And so there's a 15% tariff that we have to pay as an importer to bring it in. And what changed then about a month ago, roughly, or so 5 weeks ago, was when they subjected the motorcycle parts to this so-called Section 232. And what that means is that there's a 50% tariff on top of the 15.
Wow.
And I believe this to be true. Some of these things, they change all the time. So that, and I've just been out of town for a few weeks. So, but I believe this is still the case. And so if you bring, the thing that's really weird about it is if you bring in a part that is under that classification and subject to the 232, that the customs will charge you 50% of what you paid for that part, unless you intervene in the process, so to speak, with a customs broker and tell them, okay, well, because technically the charge is only on the value of the steel or aluminum content. And
okay.
so that means is very complicated. So we have a lot of parts that consist of, well, let's just take a brake rotor, for example. That's kind of a good one. That's a very complicated one. So you have the disc part, which is made of steel, and you have the carrier in the middle that bolts to the wheel. That's made of aluminum, and maybe it comes with a few bolts as replacements or not. And so basically, you have to pay 50% of the value of those pieces. So how do you figure that out?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, they what they really want, if you follow the letter of the law, what they really want is that information from the manufacturer. But in our little world of motorcycle parts, a lot of times nobody knows, hasn't been documented. So we are reduced to having to not guess. I shouldn't say that. We don't guess at all. We have to weigh every part and say, okay, well, this part consists of 280 grams of aluminum and 48 grams of steel for the couple bolts that it comes with, or whatever it is. And then you take that weight, and then there's a going rate for steel and for aluminum for high quality stuff, which is, and we have to multiply that weight by what's the value of the steel is, and then we come up with that amount, and then we have to pay 50% of that. Right. So it's a big difference between paying on the thing, because you have a product, the cost of the product is largely the manufacturing process, and somebody had to make a profit along the line and all that sort of thing. But the actual value of the metal that makes the part is relatively small compared to the cost of the finished product. So there's a big difference. So we have a lot of work to do, as you can imagine, because our suppliers don't have this information. So what we've been doing is we've had to basically take one off the shelf of everything that we purchase. Hopefully we try to always reorder while we still have something in stock, not, like it's a panic. So we usually have one on the shelf still when we reorder, so we can weigh that. And it takes a lot of time for my people to do that. And I've spent weekends weighing parts myself too, just because it has to get done. And then we come up with a short list of parts that we don't know because we don't have them here, or they're a new product that we've never had our hands on before. Then our suppliers are being very, very cooperative and weighing then that short list of parts and giving us that information. And then we create a pretty complex spreadsheet and then hand that to our customs broker, who then ciphers through it and gets the stuff through at the minimal cost, as minimal of a cost as possible. But the reality is that our import charges have gone up substantially because of these tariffs, and the whole thing is kind of a nightmare because the customs brokers are completely overwhelmed,
Sure.
don't seem to really know what they need to do because it seems to change all the time. And it's a supply and demand thing, right? Like everything else. So guess what? Because they have a lot more work to do and they're spread thin trying to deal with all these new regulations, they charge us more. And so, the customs brokerage is a big chunk actually of the fee. And even when the stuff was still free, we still had to pay the customs brokers because they had to still clear the shipment and state that, hey, this falls into this category and blah, blah. So maybe our duty bill wasn't as high, but the customs clearance charges have always been there. But now those have also been being raised from what I can see so far. And so the other thing that going back to what you said before about that $800 thing.
Yeah.
So that is, of course, a big deal for a lot of people who want to buy parts for their projects and don't have, customs brokerage team on hand, because usually the customs brokers are so busy and they can kind of pick who they want to work for, and you got to do some kind of volume for it to make sense for them and all that sort of thing. So obviously we don't ever, that $800. It's never that we get something in that's for that. It's usually in the tens of thousands of dollars when an order comes in. Or
Gotcha. So you were never being in, you were never in that group.
I was not, but it affects people who are doing, smaller shops and stuff like that. It has a big impact on our whole motorcycle scene. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need parts for my weird bikes, of which I have a few, and I need like I used to be able to just order like a few things, and that'll come in usually with DHL or something like that. It just goes to post, and I guess I'll just have to probably suck it up on the tariffs on that. They're probably just going to charge because I won't be able to run. I don't know. It's that small little shipments in. For those oddball parts that I need. So that's more for my personal thing, not for the business. So I'm just we'll see how that goes. I haven't done it yet. I'm always hoping somebody's going to come visit, and then I'll say, hey, you got a little room in your suitcase? And some seals and gaskets and stuff.
I feel like the de minimis rule is probably going to impact folks like myself, right? Who maybe I'm ordering a part off of eBay, or I'm ordering a single part off of, or trying to order a single part off of maybe a supplier in Europe. Where I'm not going to spend, well, actually there's no de minimis rule anymore. So it will be for everything. I think I saw recently someone had ordered a part and, had to pay, a couple cents or something for like, a little bolt or washer or something like that.
Right.
But that obviously keeps increasing as it goes up in price. One thing I wanted to circle back on that you mentioned is that, you're paying on the weight of the aluminum and the steel. And forgive my ignorance here, but isn't that a price that fluctuates over time? Like the cost of those materials change as time goes on, right?
Yeah, there is. It's a commodity, just like, so many things. So you can look that up on the day rate and use that as a calculation. I mean, I think that's just going to work. It makes perfect sense to me. And I could make that argument that's how I mean, what else are we supposed to do? We're not going to be able to get that from anybody else. What the guy paid for that steel when he made that part back in, beginning of 24, and it's sitting on the shelf. I mean, who knows? So I think it's fair to take the number of the day rate and say that's the number we're going to use, and that'll account for fluctuations, because the customs does that too. In fact, we had a little shipment come in a while back, and I went through and looked at all the tariffs, which I always do. I always review it, and there was one little part of, I don't know which one it was, but it was from China, maybe some stuff comes from China, I guess, ultimately, or so, part of it. And there it was, 125% tariff on that particular part. And I questioned it, and I said, what the heck's going on with that? Why did you charge me 125% on this? And they said, well, on that day, it was 125%. And the day after, it went to 35%.
Wow.
So there's no grace period. That's what it was. So it just had bad luck. If it had been the next day, it would have only been 35% for the China thing. So so my logic and reasoning is that if they work that way with that's what it is today, then it's a reasonable argument that we can do that same thing.
Yeah. But that's got to be hard, right? As a business, to predict your expenses through the course of a quarter or a year, when these tariffs and these rates are changing, the cost of aluminum and steel are changing, right? Because you need to kind of look forward and say, okay, I need to order this many parts for the year. But if you have to order mid-year to get more, now all of a sudden it's changed. It could be changed for the worse. Like that's got to be difficult as a business owner to kind of figure out, right?
It's very difficult. And yeah, what can I say? It's a big pain in the butt that we have to deal with this, but we don't really have a choice.
Right.
And we're committed to what we do, and we want to keep the parts flowing. And so there's going to be some increases. Try to keep that as minimal as possible, but we, for the overwhelmingly, are keeping the stuff we have at the rate that it has been. And then as resupplies come in, we have to make adjustments.
Sure.
So that's kind of what we're doing. Some things we have to raise, so you might see some changes, but I can tell you nothing's going to be any cheaper than it is today. Using parts.
Do you have any suppliers or any places that you get things from where they're just not willing to sell anymore? Because I've seen on social media some businesses that are based in the UK, based in other parts of the world, that they have just said, we're not going to ship anything to the United States. We're not selling to the United States anymore because all of this math and tariff up and down changes is too much for them to handle. I'm sure these are, single person businesses or smaller companies, but I'm just curious if you've seen anybody just shutting the pipeline down.
I have absolutely seen that. And some of our suppliers do have in the past also supplied customers directly from Europe, and also and supplied us. So customers had a choice, buy directly, deal with the import, all that sort of thing, or we have it probably at a higher price because we don't get a big discount on these parts. It's just the business is set up that way that that it's like most other things where there's big meat in there. But anyway, I have heard from suppliers saying, hey, what they're charging us now to ship to the US and the hassle we have to go through, we're not going to do it anymore. So, I've heard that they're not, so some of these guys are not going to ship to the States anymore. It's just too much work, too expensive. And then, too many problems, because then sometimes people get the duty bill and then they refuse the package. Oh. And that's not a very nice thing to do. But it's something you can do, just like disputing with a credit card charge, same kind of thing. Instead of trying to work it out with the vendor, just call the credit card company, and they take the money back. Well, in this case, they have to ship the thing back to the sender. And then, that's the thing they're worried about. So anyway, yeah, that is a thing. My suppliers so far are not unwilling to send to us. I don't see any problem with any of that because we do really all the work. Every supplier I have, I order the products and pay for everything. And then I organize the shipping. So it comes and gets collected and brought over here. And then I deal with the customs clearance myself. So there's nothing really changes for anybody that I work with, except for they're going to have to do me a favor and weigh a handful of parts until our database sooner or later then is complete. And then that work will be done,
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, wow. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot
it's all
to.
fun and games. It used to be so easy, but it's anyway. We're up to the challenge, and we're working as a team and getting done what needs to get done. So we're gonna
Well,
keep all the parts
we all
flowing.
appreciate that. We got to keep these bikes on the road.
We absolutely
So
do.
thanks for
Yeah.
doing the work and dealing with all the craziness and the changes and the ups and downs. It's not fun, obviously. So folks, please support William and keep these parts flowing, keep them in business. Obviously, this wasn't a very fun topic to talk about, but I do want to kind of end on maybe a more fun topic, and that's the bike that's sitting over your shoulder right now. We can kind of see it peeking in here, and
This one here.
yeah, exactly. I love that you kind of teased it a little bit there for us, and I'd love to, if you have a few more minutes, just to kind of give us a little explanation of what you got behind you there.
I would love to, because this is one of my favorite topics, actually. I'll show you this thing. I'm kind of starting to work on it a little bit. This is an MZ PS 250 from 1974, and it's from East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, DDR, which, by the way, yesterday would have been 76 years old. I think it's like the day that the country was founded in 1949. Anyway, so I found this thing. So this is a really cool bike. It's a two-stroke 250, and as you can see, it doesn't have any down frame. It's supported by a motor mount up here on the cylinder head and back at the swing arm. So the motor will bounce around a little bit when it's running. It's really cool. And it's a very cool bike. East German bikes are kind of a bad rap, but I tell you what, the quality of this thing is really quite amazing. I have a few of them, so this is not the MZ. MZ, by the way, is it stands for Motorradwerk Zschopau, and Zschopau is a city in East Germany where they made them. But in that same factory where they made MZ was before the war DKW. So that's very familiar. DKW was at one time the biggest manufacturer of motorcycles in the world, believe it or not. And they made a bike that was the most copied was the RT 125. Well, anyway, they made these bikes, and they made a lot of them. And this one is really special because it's actually a US model.
Oh,
it was imported by, it was some company in Ohio back in the early 70s brought in some of these bikes and sold them for very cheap, like, I don't know, $400, $500 at the time. It was a lot of money back then, but still comparatively still inexpensive. This one and a few others wound up still in the crate, found in a warehouse some years later in the around the 1990s somewhere. And this guy bought this thing, or his father did at the time, because just as a curiosity, probably didn't pay a lot, but got this brand new bike in a crate, and it went in his warehouse and it sat there for another bunch of years. And then sometime maybe 15 years ago, they took it out of the crate just for kicks, had nothing else to do one day. And then the guy was kind of a collector of Hondas up in Ohio. And he just said, this is a weird bike. I hate two strokes, and parked it in the corner. So this bike has never had fuel in the tank.
No way.
No way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes way. And it has, and I'll show you. This is the original tire. You see how like flat it is from sitting. So, but it still doesn't have any cracks in it or anything. It's amazing. So I got some new tires from Heidenau. Heidenau makes the right tires for this bike. And yeah, so I'm just taking the thing apart and putting replacing the grease and stuff like that, because it's 51 years old and it's never been started.
Right.
But when I get it done, it'll be sweetheart. Mostly just dirty from dust and stuff like that. It's just a matter of cleaning it all up, and then
that's so cool. That is a really cool bike.
Yeah, it's a really cool bike.
I don't
It's a
think
cool bike.
I've known about MZ, but I don't think I've ever actually seen one in person. I mean, I'm still not seeing in person, but this is probably the closest to in person I've seen an MZ.
Yeah, they had a lot of really neat things. Like the chain is encapsulated in a rubber tube, so it's never exposed to rain or salt or anything like that. And you grease it with grease, and it stays inside, and the chain can last pretty much forever. And yeah, the whole bike is actually really well done.
Nice.
So
Another form of German engineering to avoid chain problems.
yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's pretty
Very
neat.
cool. Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That's a super cool
No problem.
project.
Yeah.
That's amazing that it just kept getting passed from one person to the next who wasn't interested in doing anything with it.
Yeah, it's true. And it's bizarre because I'm kind of like I'm kind of into these MZs. Like I got a few of them, and I never really look at Facebook Marketplace. It's just not something I do but one day I had a little time to kill, and I did. And there it was. It was just the weirdest thing. It was like it was meant to be somehow. I don't know.
Very
So
cool. Well,
that's what I
I
think.
mean, it ended up in the best place, right? I mean, you're putting it together and getting it going again. So that's, well, not again. You're getting it going for the first time.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I don't think we have anything else to cover, William. I appreciate your time today. Folks, I think I mentioned this at the top of the conversation, but William and Boxer 2 Valve, they sponsor both podcasts. So just want to say thanks again for that, William, and the continued support. Please hop on YouTube, check out all the great videos that he's put out. If you have any questions on how to fix an Airhead, it's probably answered in one of those videos. That's really all we have for today. I just want to tell folks, don't forget to like and subscribe. Before we go, William, do you have any closing remarks, any closing statements?
Only that it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and yeah, thank you everybody out there for their support of our business, and we know what we need to do to keep things rolling, and we're going to do it. So
Great.
And thank you, and good luck to you with your podcast.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to wrap it up, folks. We'll see you next time on the Short Wheelbase. See ya.
Perfect. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Short Wheelbase podcast, presented by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. To join the club, visit bmwmoa.org. You can find full-length episodes of the excerpts heard here on the Airhead 247 podcast. The Short Wheelbase podcast is produced and edited by Nick Malozzi. Audio segments by Jeff Glover. You can check in with Nick at Airhead Misfits on Instagram.